Good afternoon. It's a pleasure for me to be here today at the Urban Green Council. I do want to commend the organizers of this afternoon. I do think that I have never been to a meeting where recycled buildings is the subject matter and the sole subject matter of the meeting, and I do think it's an extraordinary event. I wish it drew a larger crowd. I do think that the AIA and all the organizations that represent our trade should get behind this. I know in the UN, we've been wandering in the dark for a decade now, yelling that it's coming, and I do feel like efforts like this are very essential. My name is Michael Adlerstein. I'm the Assistant Secretary General. We've just finished the Capital Master Plan about 30 days ago, and it's a $2 billion project that was described. And my job was to lead the project, and now that project is finished. The UN headquarters was not created, let me push this thing if I get the right direction. It was not created by a single genius, by a collaborative team of eminent architects and engineers from different member states of the new United Nations. Names that still resonate with us are Wally Harrison, who led the UN Board of Design, Le Corbusier, the young Oscar Niemeyer, who was the young kid on the team. However, there were also highly talented professionals, a Russian engineer, a Chinese architect, wonderful designers from Sweden, Denmark, and Norway who made their special contributions to the design. The planning process, unlike most UN deliberations, was short, efficient, and very successful. The planning team started in 1947 in office space in the newly renovated Rockefeller Center of Wally Harrison, and 4 months later, they agreed to a plan that stood the test of time for the next 7 decades. The UN was still functioning in the original design with no major renovations during the course of 70 years and functioning well. Depends on your interpretation of well, but the building was functioning well. After the planning team turned over the plans to Mr. Harrison, they left, and Wally's office prepared the construction documents and started the construction work. No public review, no planning authorities, very simple and straightforward. Construction began in '49 and continued until the last project, the General Assembly Building, was completed in 1952. At the time it was built, the 17-acre complex was highly innovative, employing the best of new technologies. The signature high-rise was an elegant glass building in a city of stone and brick. Inside the building was a sophisticated river water-cooled chiller plant and connectivity to Con Ed's steam lines. The conference rooms were all wired for the new technology of simultaneous translation, which was invented here in New York, and the newest recording tool, television. The beautiful leather furniture of pre-war chairs was replaced by the more modern Naugahyde, and the heavy marble tables were replaced with the new magically diverse Formica. It was the new post-war era, and the technology was cutting edge for its moment. The modernist planning idea of organizing discrete but interconnected buildings in a poetic manner and the open spaces between the UN's chambers were ideas ahead of their time. The very high-tech glass curtain wall was one of the first of its kind on that scale. In the Secretariat Building, although a mere 39 floors, was not the most impressive skyscraper in terms of height, but its glass curtain wall was the prototype for hundreds and thousands of modern glass office towers that followed. Built by the first decade of the 21st century, our facility had aged. Maintenance in the UN was underfunded, as any organization with a strong mission and underfunding, and we were dependent upon the member states. So the state of the art from the original construction was deteriorating. The UN was designed to the fire code from the 1930s, and much has changed, but the UN has not. Consequently, much of the complex lacked sprinklers, fire and smoke detection, and modern building management systems. The debate about a renovation was well underway when 9/11 happened, and the mayor visited the UN and informed us that we must update our facility to the code, or could not count on New York City's first responders if we had an event. That pushed the General Assembly to take the debate about the renovation more seriously. And but there were other very important drivers to the capital master plan. One was to improve the functionality of a facility that was designed for 50 member states in a family that has grown to 193 member states. Another was security. The UN has in recent years been the target of several terrorist attacks. Bangkok, Algiers, Kabul, and elsewhere. Our project was therefore required to incorporate major improvements to the security of our facility. Another driver was to preserve the iconic 1950s feel of the original premises. Our compound was an architectural masterpiece, but it looked tired and in need of an update. Making our compound more sustainable was a top priority for Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. During his entire tenure, the Secretary General had sought to galvanize the public and the world leaders to understand and reduce our impact on the Earth's climate. In 2007, at the very beginning of the Capital Master Plan, Mr. Ban directed me to make sure that our renovation would lead the world by example and identify ways to reduce our own carbon footprint to become an environmental responsibility. The Capital Master Plan provided us with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to adopt modern and efficient technologies and reduce our power usage. The approval of our budget was completed in 2007. In 2008, we built this building on the North Lawn in order to accommodate a swing space for the move. We also rented about 1 million square feet of swing space throughout Midtown to accommodate moving everyone out of the campus and then moving them back in. The staff started moving into the swing space in 2009, and the Secretary General and his executive office relocated to this temporary building on the North Lawn, which the removal is just starting in next month. Now that the general debate is over, or it will be over tomorrow, then they will start the demolition of the North Lawn building. The renovation of the Secretariat and conference buildings began in 2010 and was completed in 2012. And as we planned which staff to move back in, we used this exercise to consolidate the departments of the United Nations that were spread over various buildings throughout Midtown. In the end, 12,000 relocations were executed, and the leadership team of the UN was appropriately located in the Secretariat building, and much of the staff was in rented office space. The conference building was also started in 2013, and then we emptied the General Assembly building in preparation for its renovation, which was completed on time for September 2014, which also marked the substantial completion of the Capital Master Plan. The final cost of the project was $2.15 billion, which is 11% over the original budget approved 8 years ago. We're very proud that we were able to complete the multi-year, multi-billion-dollar project with only an 11% overrun, and we completed on schedule. The Office of the Capital Master Plan, mindful of the fact that 1/3 of the greenhouse gases, and I heard here today that it's more than 1/3, but are caused by buildings, designed the renovation to meet the requirements of the US GBC's LEED Gold as a model for the restoration of older buildings. The entire campus renovation has met the gold standards, and in the case of the Secretariat building, it has been exceeded. The renovated Secretariat building has been evaluated as equivalent to LEED's Platinum. As an important result of the Capital Master Plan, total energy consumption of the United Nations headquarters was reduced by 55%. And we have reduced our carbon footprint by over 45%. We've also reduced our consumption of water by over 40%. What distinguishes the Secretariat building and elevates it to the higher LEED's Platinum level is, among many other factors, the tower's new state-of-the-art curtain wall. The Heinges architectural firm, and Bob here is represented in the audience, but we did the work, the design work. Siska did the engineering work on the project. Perkins and Will and EYP did the architectural work on the conference building and on the General Assembly building. and Skanska was our construction manager. Let me take you through a little bit of the details of the curtain wall. The Secretariat retains the distinction as being the first tall building in the United States to be constructed with a curtain wall suspended on the exterior of the building structure. It stood as a precedent for subsequent curtain wall skyscrapers. With the north and south elevations clad in Vermont marble, the east and west elevations were comprised of curtain walls. The original curtain wall was comprised of mullions spanning floor to floor with framing in between. Cold rolled steel channels, mullions supported at each floor slab, were clad with black anodized aluminum extrusions. Steel channels and extruded aluminum cladding were pre-assembled into 8-story high ladders prior to installation and then glazed in place. The construction method later evolved into the contemporary factory pre-assembled curtain wall. The curtain wall's appearance was significantly altered over the 6 decades of patching, caulking, insulating, and blast coatings, resulting in a patchwork of greenish colors. A green reflective film was added in the 1990s for better protection from the summer heat gain, and a blast film was added 10 years later for better protection from blast. In 2001, we began to assess the feasibility of restoring the curtain wall. It had been assumed that the facade could be restored with minimal intervention. We looked into 4 strategies: repair, restoration, reconstruction, and replacement. Inspections revealed that there was significant deterioration of the metal as well as the glass, as well as corrosion of the steel curtain wall components, including the support anchors. We also determined that the window grout was contaminated with asbestos. We had been fortunate, but it was time to fully replace the entire curtain wall. We moved to designing the replacement system, and our criteria that guided the selection was performance, longevity and life cycle cost, historic preservation, security, and sustainable design. Ultimately, however, we decided to replace the existing failed facade with as faithful a representation of the original curtain wall as possible. The challenges that this design objective presented soon became apparent. Matching the appearance of the original 1/4-inch thick glass with insulating laminated glass that would provide state-of-the-art performance and protection, meeting the new code, wind load, and security requirements within the original mullion profiles, and matching the original failed finishes with modern coatings and finishes that would provide another 100 years of life. The design and specification of the glass alone was a 12-month process that began with full computer simulations of the building with the original glass characteristics from measured spectral data, and culminated in a selection process based on full-size samples of products from around the world. The original finish of anodized aluminum was somewhat unique. It is no longer available today. Various sample trials were undertaken to identify a contemporary finishing procedure that would best match the original. The engineering design of the glass and framing had to exceed current energy code requirements, as well as wind loads from wind tunnel testing and blast codes. The new aluminum profiles adhere to as much as possible to the original profiles. The United Nations had agreed through an agreement with the City of New York and with the host country that we would, although we're a sovereign territory and we're not in New York City, that we would, in order to assure the city that we were safe, that we would comply with all building codes as well as the international building codes that were relevant. So we had, by our voluntary agreement, we now have a building which has totally been inspected every 2 weeks during construction by the building department. Although there were never inspections, there were visits, and there were no violations, there were only notices. And at the end, we didn't get a C of O, we got a letter saying that we met the code. So it was it's very important in the UN that we retain our immunity, because every US facility all over the world has the same immunity, and there's tens of thousands of US government facilities that would have been subject to inspection if the UN was subject to inspection. The process of replacing the Secretariat Building's curtain wall considered sustainability, security, performance, and history at each step. We also looked into staging the work 10 floors at a time to retain the cost benefit of partial occupancy, but the level of asbestos risk and the noise of the removal and new insulation pushed us to empty the building. The original curtain wall was dismantled quickly and its component materials almost completely recycled. Although the building was empty, we executed the demolition of the original curtain wall and the installation of the new pressure equalized systems in 10-story sections. The new curtain wall not only respects the 1948 historic profile, but it also reinstates the original design intent of transparency, appropriate to this body, but which had been masked for years by the highly reflective film. I'm often asked by member states whether it would have been less expensive to tear down the building and build another UN. It's a reasonable question, and the answer is no. It would have been more or less the same price. But the most noteworthy energy savings associated with the project is the result of having renovated the compound rather than demolishing it and building anew. The embodied energy in the structural systems, foundations, slabs, and the walls of the buildings represent an enormous conservation of energy. The general debate at the UN headquarters last week and the week before that ends soon reflects that much of the world now accepts that man-made climate change is very real. Many say that one of the triggers of the recent surge in violence throughout the world is related to climate change. As the reality of climate change and social problems of climate change becomes clearer, as design professionals, we must all clarify the decision-making process when more space is needed for any client. Renovation must be more seriously considered before we abandon that road in favor of new construction. In our case at the UN, even aside from the obvious loss of historic and iconic cultural value, new construction would not have been less expensive, and from an overall energy and an environmental standpoint, it would have been a major waste of carbon and a major mistake. Thank you for your attention.